All right, so now we are going to be fulfilling a request made by, actually, it wasn't a request. I was suggested something to watch, and I was like, hey, that would make a great React video too. It seems quite up my alley. So this was basically suggested by Happy Harble for me to watch Heliofant 1, Pet Goat 2. I gotta stop clicking that button. But there was the issue that when I looked it up, I actually found that there was okay, there's a 2, so is there a 1? And then I looked it up, and I found a 3, 4, and 5, and then a full version, and none of them seemed to match up from the description of who made them, and like the description of what I could find on like the preview from the thumbnail, and I didn't want to like ruin the first time reaction, right? So then I went to Grok and I asked, basically what the fuck is going on here? And hold on, actually, yeah, okay. So long story short, these various pet goat videos are completely fucking unrelated to each other, apparently. And it's like, okay, yeah, so let's go down here and read this before we get into it. This seems to be uploaded from someone who is not the creator themselves. Fine enough, right? But apparently the director is, I don't know why it's written this way, Louis Lefebvre. No idea who that is. And apparently there is a huge amount of disinformation and ignorance regarding what this film is about. It is about exposing lies, deception of the cabal, and embracing the truth. There is nothing demonic about the film. I've had to explain that people are way too quick to see the demonic in the non-demonic. I've had to explain this about various things. But anyway, I have seen way too many inane YouTube posts about people attempting to decipher and decode the hidden meaning and whiffing at the plate. Okay, fair enough. If you want to know what the film is about, go to this clip. This full-blown 40-minute Alex Jones Infowar interview with the creator, the interview with the truth-seeking Mr. Lebreve will dispel all the nonsense circulating about the video. So let's open that up. I don't know if this is going to be the full thing. Oh, well, video unavailable. Fuck. I'll have to find that later. I do have the analyses for part 1 and 2 open. Haven't watched them yet, so I'll see what I miss, right? Let's see. Since many will not recognize the symbolism, I found these 2 clips by YouTuber the Bar Caroller. I can't talk right now. Where many of the symbols are identified and explained. I thought she did a very good job, much better than most of the nonsense people upload to YouTube to explain or decode the video. Yeah, so I'm probably not going to go into like the deep lore analysis here. I'm probably going to do the thing I do with a lot of my videos, which is again more of an epistemological and like metaphysics-based breakdown, not more of a historical breakdown. Which I have a sneaking suspicion it's going to be more political and historical in these 2 videos. So, and you can also see what I have planned soon, right? Long-standing request from a viewer. That being said, let us start this video. Let's turn this all the way up, actually. That's interesting. We have a goat in a box, a man trying to rein in a aggressive dog. The man is armed. So that's not a very pleasant set of signs and symbols. The goat has a barcode with 666 on its forehead. So, I mean, obviously this is a reference to the Mark of the Beast imagery, especially the idea, because there was, back in the day, an old conspiracy theory that, like, people would get barcoded, and that would be the Mark of the Beast. Very obviously nonsense, but yeah, it's referring to that right there. And the goat does have some association with, like, again, the old parable of separating the sheeps from the goats, right? with the goats being the unruly, unable to be paired with the sheep, obviously, and the goat is also associated with the Baphomet. The Baphomet. Again, it says that obviously this is not a demonic thing, which I don't think it is. You can use satanic imagery to undermine Satanism. It's not that hard. Just like you can use Christian imagery to undermine Christianity, right? Signs and symbols are what we actually make use of. So you can actually use things to undermine their meaning. And I'm not saying that that's what's going on here. I'm just saying just keep an eye out that is a thing you actually can do. So. Seems to be this whole spiral in the eye is like an old-timey cartoony sign for like hypnotism, right? So it's like they're being put under a spell. So this is I Pet Goat 2. From what I am told, this is a standalone that doesn't actually have a prequel or a sequel from this person and isn't actually, again, related to the other I Pet Goat animations. Not a fucking clue why it's called 2. Maybe it may just be an artsy-fartsy thing. Artists sometimes do this kind of thing. But I'm not entirely sure. We'll find out. That's not exactly that subtle. You know, it's the puppet, you know, the puppet master controlling the... Oh, well, I think I saw the thumbnail, so I'm pretty sure I know who this is. But this part isn't that hard to explain. Okay, interesting. The ring is a snake. Fair enough. So it's like these long reptilian hands, you know, controlling something, but, you know, with the levers of power. And yeah, this kind of links back to the whole reptilian conspiracy theory, which is fake and gay, by the way. But, I mean, on a symbolic level, you could call some of these people reptiles based on how inhuman they do sometimes tend to act, right? There's something off with them. So it's like, on a rhetorical level, it's fine. Just don't buy into the actual reptile people thing. We're all actually serious adults here, right? The red light, again, the heat associated with danger. Okay, yeah, I was right. So, based on the thumbnail, I was able to tell that this was George W. Bush, right? I have a lot of issues with George W. Bush. Like, as much as I complain about Gnosticism on the left, George W. Bush is basically a right Hegelian. I was also told I was told to watch this when I went on a rant about how George W. Bush is basically a right Hegelian. But, you know, so I assume there's going to be something leaning into that in this video. He seems quite distressed in this sign. The checkerboard pattern is kind of interesting. Hold on. Does that say evolution? Yeah, that says evolution on the fucking board. Let's see. There's a house on fire. So, like, our house, our national house, presumably is not in order. Hold on. Is there a higher resolution that I can get with this? Maybe I'm on the wrong resolution. Okay, no, I am on the highest resolution. Some of the imagery in the background may make sense. I'm not ringing any bells, like obviously the snowflakes, but I don't know if the special snowflakes language was a thing by the time this video was made, because I don't know when this video was made. And we have to remember that, like, signs and symbols come into their usage in time and space. They're not abstract, you know, Platonic entities like some people seem to think they are. Let's see. Fucking tap dancing to the will of the reptilians in power, right? Fair enough. In a sense, he's putting on a show. He's even got a spotlight on him. He's got the dunce cap on, presumably because the man is a fool dancing for powers he may not himself necessarily be aware of. That is very okay. I like this animation. Hold on. Let's just forget the political stuff right now and the metaphysical stuff that we're trying to get to right now. Just look at this shit. That's just so uncanny. That's very good in terms of like animation. They knew what they were doing there. right here. And then look at how he fucking... just like as a piece of animation, this is like really interesting just as an animation on its own. That his head fucking almost like an owl.
Fool me once, fool me once, fool me once. Shame on, shame on.
You can't fool me again. Oh, I thought they were gonna go with the line, fool me once, fool me twice, you can't fool me again, right? That classic George W. Bushism.
Fool me, can't get fooled again.
Okay, so they did lean exactly into that. Okay. I will admit, sometimes some of the shit he says is actually kind of funny, right? Like, I can find things that people I dislike say to be kind of humorous at times, right? It's not that hard. But yeah, no, I'm not a big fan of the Bush presidency himself. Interesting. F equals negative F. That's interesting, because that's a violation of the non-contradiction, the law of non-contradiction, which is one of the 3 laws of logic, right? The idea that, like, in order for a statement to be true, it cannot imply its own self-negation, right? So in this case, considering this is on a class and this is on a board of things to teach, interesting Chinese dragon there, right? Whispering into the brain to like split it in half. Actually, you know what? That actually might be part of the thing in here. Because obviously, like, the Chinese dragon is a symbol of the East, right? I mean, it's not on the Chinese flag, but it used to be on the Chinese flag during, like, the Qing dynasty. And it is still on the flag of, is it Bhutan or Dzongkha? One of those 2 fucking, like, Inno-Sindo countries. It might be on the flag of both of them, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But I'll double check that after the video. But this is very clearly not like a traditional Chinese dragon. You can look at the eye and see that, like, this is more of a... It seems to be more of a sinister figure. It's whispering into the brain, almost like a brain worm, right? And, you know, the brain has been split in half, as in, like, now there's, like, 2 different centers of subjectivity potentially vying for control with opposite motivations. Again, Hangman is almost complete, right? So, if I remember correctly, now I've never actually played Hangman before, but I think the rule of Hangman is like you're trying to obviously not be hanged yourself, right? So, it's interesting that, like, we are 1 move away from being the hanged man ourselves, right? But the part that I'm thinking about right now would be the part with, like, the dragon whispering into the brain, and right next to the brain is potentially the thought, because we even have an arrow pointing to the brain of F equals negative, negative F. So F equals not F. Again, the idea that, like, the law of non-contradiction has to be broken. They get you to believe a contradiction, because if you can get someone to believe a contradiction, you can get them to believe anything, because now even self-negation is itself not a sign of something being untrue, right? That's the whole point of the dialectic, is to get people to believe, that contradictory things can be true at the same time. Now, the thing, like, with Leaflet points out, and other people, is like, 2 things can be true at the same time, and they can seem to be contradictory. The key word there is seem. They're not true in opposition, in opposites, in the same respect, at the same time. They are true in different scenarios, right? So the truth is more complicated. But when you have a specific situation and a specific statement, it cannot imply its own self-negation. So this is kind of interesting. Also, yes, I am aware of, like, the black and white association with, like, the chessboard, right? Tap dancing on the chessboard, and, like, the black and white morality kind of deal, right? I don't know if that's intentional, but that did cross my mind. It's like a little wind-up toy. Hold on. You can even hear the gears turning. I'm not entirely sure what the little dance he's doing refers to. I do know dance choreography is meaningful. I just don't know anything about dance choreography to like actually understand it. But it's like he's very clearly twisting himself, right? in unnatural ways to again put on the show. Okay. Okay, fair enough. I'm not a big fan of Obama either, right? The great drone, warfare, drone general in chief, right? I did notice the penis on the, taken on the board as well. I don't know who this is supposed to be off the top of my head. It could be a movie reference. I'm getting the feeling that this may be a movie reference, but I don't really watch live action movies all that much. So anything involving that is just gonna like fly straight over my head, to be perfectly honest. Interesting. There's the fake masses surrounding her. There's the apple, commonly associated with, well, funny enough, so the apple is associated with the fruit of knowledge of good and evil, the bad route in the Western world, because like there's a pun in the Vulgate here that's being worked here. It's not an avoidable pun, right? Because like the word for evil in Latin is malum, but it's also a homophone with the word for apple, malum. So it's like, again, there's a very easy visual pun there. There's also the metaphor of like the poisoned apple and like again the Sleeping Beauty story. Interesting. Is that a lotus? Lotuses are oftentimes associated with enlightenment. Let's go back here for one moment. Let's see what's going on here. Oh, interesting. I didn't notice this part. There's barbed wire and thorns separating and intertwining the obviously malshapen fake masses, right? Definitely interesting. Because I don't know. Again, I don't know when this video was posted. Definitely interesting. Like again, the viewership, the culture, a lot of it is fake. A lot of it is propped up by, again, people trying to foist a false, reality on people. The exit, I actually just noticed, is open and available in the back. Let's see. So that's interesting. Is that supposed to be like global homo in the background? Where it's like everyone is like a homogenous, faceless mass with that's not differentiated. In fact, they're bleeding into each other because they're not actually. That might be the exact point, because they're not actually individuals that are being represented in this sculpture. Rather, every individual seems to be connected in such a way that they're not really individuals as much as they are cells in a collective body, right? So in this case, the collective comes prior to the individual, which is the inversion of how reality actually works. So this is like a spell, and in fact, when you talk about being spellbound, they're being bound, they're being ensnared, right? And so yeah, they're kind of snared and entangled with barbed wire. But yeah, I you know what? Actually, I think this is the collectivist vision in the background of like man not as a meaningful unit unto himself with a self-justifying existence, but rather man as a cell in the whole, subject to apoptosis, right? So is the apple involved with like taking a bite of the apple? Is that involved with the spell being integrated into this bodily whole? So the apple would be poisoned ideologically, not necessarily chemically. And in fact, she herself is singled out, which might be the point, like trying to be an individual when everyone's trying to be part of, the collective and trying to promote the collective. I don't know. I'm still learning the visual language here. Interesting. It almost looks like it's trying to write something out, but I can't make, because like I see LCOO. So I'm not seeing the word itself. But yeah, so like out of the apple, which may or may not be poisoned, I'm not entirely sure. We're still figuring this out. Is born a lotus, a sign of enlightenment, which is ironic because enlightenment in most enlightenment traditions is actually just a false enlightenment. Whatever that represents, it's I mean, technically it was also a flower in full bloom, right? But that definitely took the wind out of Obama's sails, right? Actually, you know what? This is an interesting thing I didn't notice too. Look at Obama and how he's portrayed, right? They're both in the sense of like performing to the crowd, but Obama has been like, Bush has the dunce cap on him, right? Whereas Obama actually has the graduation cap on him. So there's an added prestige that Obama has that Bush didn't himself have on the perception of their education. America's been ripped in half, right? The U.S. flag. Let's see. This is a desolate wasteland pretending to be alive. Well, that's not exactly a subtle illusion. So, yeah. Obviously, you have the two towers in the background. One's already smoking, right? We had Bush in the classroom, obviously, because that's the whole, the meme of like, Mr. President, a second something has happened, right? That meme comes obviously from the actual September 11th attacks, right? Because when that actually happened, Bush was actually, performing for a class of students. Yeah. And now the tower collapses. This was an awful day, by the way. Like, I was too young to remember what happened, but like every September 11th, I go and I rewatch the footage from various vantage points, and it's interesting to see how differently Americans covered some of this stuff than people around the world. Because there were foreigners who actually did celebrate this shit happening to us, especially across the Arab world. That's not actually like exaggeration. There were people actually celebrating this shit. But it is interesting because I've also seen, for example, the cover from the NHK. How the Japanese covered this. It's quite interesting. Okay, that's an interesting little symbol to put in here. What is going on here? Got a man dancing in a mask. It's almost like those masks that you would associate with like Greek plays, right? To express emotion for the catharsis of a people. Then he jumps into the water, right? Presumably to his death, considering this is the Arctic. Okay, that's funny. This is fucking Osama bin Laden with CIA on his fucking. Okay, yeah, Yeah. The various conspiracy theories about the possibility that the CIA may have known or may have instigated 9/11. You know, this, even if you don't buy into that theory, this still is pretty fucking funny because we did fund a lot of the mujahideen that would eventually become, Al Qaeda during the Cold War to fight the Soviets, right? Yeah. So. So America, the Statue of Liberty, gift of, the Statue of Liberty, literally a goddess of liberty, being owned by Israel. Hold on. There's a lot going on here. Holy crap. There's a little bit of an Egyptian visual here, which is interesting because a lot of the errors, at least as they affect the West, are not actually Jewish in origin. They're actually Egyptian. Like, the foundation of the Western world is ideologically Jerusalem and Athens, right? Athens being like the symbol of Greek philosophy, in Jerusalem being the symbol of the religion, right? Because the religious foundation of the West is itself Christianity. And you would have to argue that, like, the true inheritors of Jerusalem in the civilizational sense would be Rome, right? Because of their adoption of the Christian religion. So the basis of Rome is, to be perfectly honest, Athens, right? All of the Roman philosophy is predicated on Greek philosophy. But the difference is like the errors that are very common in Western philosophy, they come very often from Alexandria, right? The error of Hermeticism and Neoplatonism are associated with Alexandria for a reason. These are Egyptian ideas. So it's kind of interesting that this is played here. And again, you have like the very, again, more, there's like, again, an old school style tunic here you could associate with the Egyptians in the boat, right? Like Ra, carrying his boat across the sky and through the underworld. Yeah, again, the sea of oil. Okay, I actually may have been spot on with some of the Egyptian imagery here. Okay, this is going to take me a little bit longer than I thought because there's a lot here to disentangle, and I'm definitely interested in like the symbology behind all this stuff. But I'm definitely going to have to look at the what the fuck would you call it? The explanation video to see what's going on here. Because yes, this does actually seem very anti-occult to me, very anti-dialectic. If there's people saying that this is demonic, it's fucking wild to me because I have no idea what the hell they're on about. The sky has closed, right? We've lost heaven's blessing. The sun, light no longer shines. It's a period of darkness as liberty falls. This is interesting. Again, the serpent, which is usually a sign of evil, right? Peers through the screen, the camera, right? I mean, this is a screen, but it would be a camera, and you again see the above the serpent's eye, slightly to the right, you can see a reflection of the serpent's eye off the egg, it looks like. And what we see there is, again, the hypnotism, right? The putting under the snare of the new generations who have yet to be born, right? So again, the broadcast itself, the signal, is being used by malevolent powers for the disenfranchisement, for the spellbinding of the new generation. Or at least that's what I'm getting right now. Again, the child, unborn child, to be shown in the egg here, like, I mean, kind of like a we don't really use the words properly because it's like the ovum was what we call an egg. But then if you think about the egg is really kind of an external womb for like a reptile or an amphibian. Whereas like the womb of like a mammal, of a placental mammal, at least not a monotreme, is, you know, interior. There's a certain degree of intimacy between parent and child between placental mammals that does not exist in, you know, even monotremes, even though monotremes themselves also have to feed their young the way that they do. Oh shit, wrong button. This is interesting. I'm trying to figure out, disentangle what is going on here specifically. Because again, this does seem to indicate that it's like unborn generations that are being targeted, right? Being targeted by the serpent, and presumably the hand is also related to the hands we saw earlier, right? The powers that be that control the system. Yeah, I mean, wrapping around it, you know, in like coiling around the new generation, but I don't really know how to interpret that particular image, at least not off the top of my head. If I gave myself like 30 minutes to think about it, I would probably come up with a decent analysis of that, but let's continue. And here we see... Wait, that was actually kind of interesting. Oh, there's a fire in the heart. And as it continues, as the Egyptian, as the boat moves across the river, the fire in his heart dies. That's actually kind of interesting. Now, the heart has, like, I mean, obviously it's not located where the heart actually is, but we all know this, right? We put the heart in the center of the chest symbolically for a reason, because, like, the heart is the symbolic center of not only just life, but also it's symbolically related to, like, the emotions that you feel, right? Even though that's actually processed somewhere else in the brain. The reason we have this association with how the heart and the emotions is because, you know, when you know, you have a high emotional spike, you can feel it in your chest. So it's interesting though, because the heart also has a very, very important role in the Egyptian worldview, right? The Egyptian worldview didn't really have a concept of a soul as we do in the West, because in the West, the soul is the vital principle of the body, that which makes the body alive as opposed to not alive. There's not really an anatomy to the soul in the Western religion, right? But in many Eastern religions, such as, for example, the Hun and the Po in Chinese religion, there are parts to the soul, right? Assuming that there is such a thing as a soul, because you could argue that, like, the Western concept of the soul is also a distinctly Western concept, because again, that irreducibility, it belongs to one body as its vital principle, isn't exactly anything found in, for example, the Indian religions with the reincarnation, or even the Greek religions which believed in metempsychosis, which is basically just samsara but Greek. And samsara, by the way, is the thing we call in the West reincarnation. Because, like, the Atman, or the psyche in metempsychosis, is not the soul. Because, like, reincarnation is impossible for that exact reason. The principle that animates one body, specifically, is not the principle that animates any other body. So if there is a principle that moves between animate bodies, that is not the principle that is animating the individual body. But anyway, so... the reason I bring this up is because the Egyptian had a very sophisticated anatomy of what people often call the soul, right? Different parts of the soul. I disagree that it's a soul, but it's because I define the soul in a very particular way. And one of the most important aspects is it's famous that, you know, you'd have the heart, you know, preserved in a jar. The ib is what you know, it's the closest thing is we have the reconstruction for what the name of the soul in the Egyptian metaphysic was. But it wasn't the only part of the thing. The reason they preserved the body was because the shhut, or shadow was also a part of the soul. Now, shadow just means image, right? So the image of a person, like how they are actually represented, and their literal physical form were part of the soul as well, right? Which might explain the glowing of the body here, right? The heart and the soul are not disconnected from each other. But other than that, you also had the ba and the ka. Like, I think the ba being probably the closest thing to like an atman or a psyche, if I remember correctly. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head what the difference between ba and ka are. But there's also, again, the ren is another part of the Egyptian soul. The ren being, again, the name. So it's like the Egyptians place a great deal of importance on the name, because it turns out in all ancient cultures, including the Christian culture, the name was a signifier of the essence of a person, right? It was either an indication of what the person actually was in certain cultures, or it is an indication of some desire that the parents have for the child. It's only modern cultures, for the most part, that are pretty glib with what they name their child and don't really put any thought into it. But like, names are oftentimes like either like proclamations of essence, or they were like prayers to the gods about what you wanted for your child, right? What you wanted this child to mean in the play of history. So this is kind of interesting. This is almost like someone being carried across the ferry, the river of Chiron. I forget what its name is. Oh, it's coming. Died out for a moment, but the flame did spark up. It's almost like trying to start up a car with a bad starter. You might be able to get it to start, but you're going to have to give it a couple tries. You have the third eye, right? The common symbol of enlightenment. Interesting. So that was on purpose. So like the head being open in the back again. Oh, and that's the child that was born. Okay, so they are infecting. You can see the egg in the background, right? It's been open. So yeah, this is a large metaphor for like how you program new generations into cultures that are detrimental to themselves, right? You have the malevolent figure who's, in a sense, plugged into this new generation through the propaganda with which they whisper into the back of their brain. Now this is going to be interesting, because it looks like they are actually putting things in here. Okay, let's see what we are being propagandized with. Okay, yeah, fair enough. The NASDAQ, the S&P 500. Hold on. Uranium. So it looks like they're talking about uranium in the what would be their right eye. Let's see. I can't really figure out what that is. Oh, markets plunge. Okay, so there's this carryover from the left, from the two eyes. War coverage. Bombers, right? Let's see. Interesting. So all these, again, in this case, it looks like they're being like overly inundated with things that they don't really have any control over, as a form of demoralization, which is why instead of standing up, they're laying down on the ground, spasming and twitching, right? Because there's no real way for them to actually take responsibility for any of this kind of stuff. No real power they can exert to change these, things that are going on. It makes the world seem almost like it's almost as if like you're trying to convince the world that like being is inherently cruel, and it has to be like put under ideological control in order to actually turn being into something good, which is one of the Gnostic ploys, right? the whole like underlying idea behind Gnosticism is that the world is inherently malevolent. That like it has to be made good in some way, or it has to be left altogether. And that's the way that like the Hermeticist ploy in like the underlying Hermetic Kabbalistic ploy is in undergirding Marxism. The idea that like the world is broken in such a way that it can't really be good in how it is now. It has to be, the vessels have to be repaired. They have to be brought back together. Man has to be placed in a state of what would you say? Man has to forcefully re-enter the garden himself. But the way you do that is, first of all, you have to destroy the world around you, and you can't really convince people that the world has to be destroyed, whether you're a dispensationalist or you were taught by Chabad extremists, or you're a Twelver, in Iran, or you're a Hegelian. Then the only way that you can convince people to let the world be destroyed so that a new world can come and take its place is you have to first teach them that this world that they currently live in is itself is something evil. Because then that's how you convince people to actually desire the next world in disorder, hatred of the world they currently live in. And so, yeah, you disenfranchise them, you disempower them, you make them see the world as inherently evil by only showcasing the evil to them. So yeah, it's obviously the war on terror seems to be styled as like a civilizational war between Islam and the West. I have a lot of issues here because, as someone who actually has a complete collection of Sunni hadiths and has 5 Qurans, 5 different translations of the Quran, and someone who's actually familiar with the history of Islam, I can tell you Islam is actually a problem. Islam is actually a problem. The only reason we even have a navy is because of the first Barbary Wars, where it turns out the Muslim nations would not stop touching our fucking boats, right? You want me to quote the thing I quoted in my 5-hour Iran video? The ruling by Ayatollah Khomeini about child prostitution in Iran. You cannot live in peace with a culture that thinks that if you're not part of their religion or under the oppression of their religion, you were part of the house of war. Now, granted, hopefully Islam is collapsing. There is quite a bit of reason to be hopeful that within the next few generations, Islam will lose its power across almost all of the Muslim world. Because Islam is experiencing right now a catastrophic collapse. But yeah, no, even if the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan were unjust, which, by the way, I think they were. I do think the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan were unjust. And I also think that the war in Iran is substantially different from the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, because the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the Afghanis and the Iraqis across all the ethnic groups, they still wanted Sharia law, which was the exact thing that caused the problems for their society in the first place. They just thought Sharia law was being done wrong, so they were inevitably just going to waste whatever effort we put into quote unquote liberating their societies. Even if you give the benefit of the doubt, we were actually genuinely trying to liberate their societies. Wouldn't have fucking worked because these people wanted Sharia anyway, right? They were going to put themselves back in the same shithole that we tried to fight them out of, allegedly. Again, I'm doing benefit of the doubt here for the sake of proving a point. And that's exactly what happened. As soon as the Afghanis got their ability to do what they wanted back, guess what happened? Taliban came back in power. Even greater force than beforehand. Because it turns out that's exactly what the Afghanis kind of wanted. Iran is different. Iran is very much strongly not Muslim. The most recent pollings show that Iran is only about 40% Muslim. So it is primarily non-Muslim anymore. The people do not want to be ruled by Sharia. Even the Muslims in Iran do not want Sharia. So it's like that's a tacitly different scenario than the issue with Iraq and Afghanistan. And you also have the issue that, again, Iraq and Afghanistan, that like Iran is actually run by 12ers. And if you know anything about 12verism and Khomeiniism and Khomeinism, it's a substantially different thing than dealing with a bunch of Deobanis and Pashtunwalis. Very different. So anyone who believes that the sandbox countries are all the same, and therefore our relation to the sandbox countries are all the same, does not know a damn thing about the sandbox countries. But that being said, it is justifiable to be worried about the reason we are involved in these conflicts in the first place when you have people like Hexeth saying very bizarre things, and you have dispensationalists who want to bring the world to an end through increased bloodshed, especially increased bloodshed in the Middle East, in power, whispering to the president's ear. And, you know, you have Chabadists who are like, ah, yes, we can herald the end of time if we, destroy Al-Aqsa, the third holiest site in Islam, and we rebuild the Second Temple, which then makes Christians a little, especially, a little bit, on edge there, because it's like, well, there's no need for a second temple. The second temple already, not second, it's a third temple. There's no need for a third temple because the third temple is Jesus Christ, right? And you have some of those Chabadists saying, hey, we should outlaw all non-Jews from entering into Jerusalem, which would cut off Christians from their, holy sites as well. So these are not necessarily the majority of people in Israel. They are not. And they're not the majority of people in the United States. They are not. But the people who want to see the world as it is now, the current age, come to an end so that they can have their new world come into being, the speculative metaphysics become real. They are actually motivated to grab levers of power because they want to see this world come to an end, just like what happened in Iran with the 12ers, right? But the people who just want to live in the world and grill, right? We're not motivated to grab levers of power. And so inevitably what happens is the apocalypticist takes our complacency as a go ahead to take control and destroy our lives. Fucking very predictable, but it is a thing that happened. This might be what this is referring to, but I'm not entirely sure. That's interesting. So it almost looks like those are bats, unless you pause it and it's clear that these are birds, right? What kind of birds are these? These seem to be as like the dome of like Islamic civilization, which by the way should be displaced by something else. I don't care if it's Christian, I don't care if it's like Zoroastrian, I don't care if it's fucking like objectivism. Anything is better than Islam. Except for communism. But like, let's be fair, communists and Muslims band together for the Red-Green Alliance for a reason. Whenever the Red-Green Alliance accomplishes its goal, they inevitably kill each other anyway, right? Think about what China's currently doing to the Uyghur population, right? And think about like what the Iranians did to the leftists who helped, not the Iranians, the Iranian regime, the IRGC did to the leftists, after they came into power. This fucking killed all of them, right? It's the whole enemy of my enemy is not my friend. The enemy of my enemy is my friend for now kind of deal, right? They'll kill each other as soon as they get their civilizational projects in order. Again, butterfly, not entirely sure what that means because butterflies have a multiplicity of different meanings. This is reminding me of an old painting that sculpture that I can't remember off the top of my head. This is very clearly a mother mourning their, decedent child. And this mother is sacralized, right? Because she has a halo around her, so she's a saint of some variety. She's dressed in black, color of mourning. But also just a common color of niqabs, especially in Saudi Arabia, right? The child is obviously deceased. We don't exactly need to belabor that point. There's a bug crawling around it, beetle. Let's see. That is interesting. What the fuck is going on here? This is like some Boko Haram type shit, right? Child soldiers in Africa, right? Interesting. So this is definitely interesting. This seems to be a Latin American man. He's got a hammer, there's a sickle, and he's being drowned in green. I think that's green. Could be red. But I don't imagine, I mean, I'm red-green colorblind, but I don't imagine that it would be, considering the rest of this video, I don't imagine that they would be so unsubtle as to have this be like drowning in red, right? The tattoo means nothing to me. Yeah, he seems pretty shocked at the fact that like he's being drowned after he supported, you know, the revolution. When it's like, again, after the murder of God inevitably comes the murder of man, right? Or the murder of revolutionary man, right? Revolutionary man kills God, and subsequently he too dies, right? This is interesting. Oh, so the man we saw earlier is actually supposed to be Jesus, I take it. Let's go back over here for a moment. I'm not entirely sure what this is supposed to be. Is this... Yeah, this scene is confusing me. Like, it seems that he dug himself into a hole that he himself can't get out of. You know, great visual imagery, right? But I'm not entirely sure what specifically this represents, other than, like, you get what you... Like, again, the unintended consequences of my behavior. There's a lot of symbology behind this. It's just... Some of it is escaping me at the moment. This very clearly, like, again, alludes to Tiananmen Square, right? The tank man, where he stands in front of the tanks, and the tanks actually stop, even though they could just mow his ass over, right? Waving the white flag. Fucking baring its fangs, snapping its jaws, a very aggressive sign from the tank. There's a tiger and a black belt, for some reason, on this individual person. Interesting. This is very clearly a Latin American imagery, right? This is very clearly Latin American imagery. You can see the pillars on the side almost form like a rib cage or a closing maw, right? Closing hand. There's a almost celebratory, fireworks in the background. It's like almost a distraction from the totalitarianism coming in. And she's disappointed, I guess, that like she's the lone party standing in opposition to this. I think, again, this is just my first reaction to this. Oh, I get it. Okay. So yeah, the yellow shirt, the skull's open, to whisper into it. It's also the whole you can't make an omelet without cracking a few eggs kind of idea. Interesting. These are literal frames of reference. These are literal frames of reference in the cosmos, right? Obliterated so that the whole can be seen through the passing of the cosmic man. Okay, so we're passing through a mouth very clearly. Yeah, that right there is the uvula. You can see the maw around. The association with fire is also kind of interesting, because obviously, like, The association, obviously, is that, like in the Western world, is that Christ is the logos, right? The word of God. God is what he speaks, right? Oh, excuse me. But the word has a deeper association in, like, philosophical context, which is why that word is chosen, right? The logos is the underlying logic. It's where we get the word logic from. It is the underlying ordering principle of reality. So it's like the physical, the psychical, and the abstract reality are all organized by a singular principle, which it would be the first principle, right? That's the logos. So when God speaks, when he uses the logos, that ordering principle goes from thought into creative action through speaking. And the association with fire is interesting because there is the Bible verse, the Lord your God is a consuming fire. I think this verse appears in both the Old Testament and the New Testament, but let me double check that as we continue. And also, again, his being lit also makes sense in that, again, he is a light in the dark. He is the light in the darkness. He is the one who brings the light even as he leaves. Yeah, fair enough. Again, the Eastern religion, right? Fisher of men kind of deal, right? It was a little graphic. I'm not gonna rewind to examine that one for obvious reasons. I'm pretty sure that does break YouTube TOS, so I guess I get my first TOS break here. But that being said, the light comes in, and immediately the prison starts falling apart, right? That's the whole Plato's allegory of the cave thing, right? Once you see the lie, it's impossible to unsee the lie, kind of deal. Oh, and there's almost like a cathedral window here, letting in the light to beautify. You have the competing Indian religion here, right? Interesting that the child is like posed almost as a whirling dervish, right? By the way, that would be like a Sufi practice. Okay, this looks more like a Polynesian thing. Okay, so now we're moving more into like a Native American stereotype. Okay, so this is interesting because like a luchador, right? Here we very clearly have the devil frozen, which is probably, funny enough, he sees like rainbow halos in his eyes, right? Blinded by the sun. This is probably an allusion to Dante's Inferno, right? Where the devil is cast into the deepest pit of hell where there is no heat because it is furthest away from the love of God, right? Now, it's funny, Doctor of Insanity actually picked up on this when he had to read when he had to do an analysis of this in college, funny enough. And they think he was the only person in his class to pick up on the fact that, like, the reason the devil is frozen in his place in hell is because he is placed himself furthest away from the love of God, which is the fire, which is why the Imperium is itself just blazing in fire, but also because his attempts to flee actually undercut him, right? By fleeing ever further away from the love of God, he keeps himself frozen in place as he tries to flee, right? Here we have the devil himself frozen away from all heat and life as he flees the principle from which all reality springs for his lie, which actually makes sense now, because if we're using this imagery, then the ice in the entire setting is again the lie, and then the fire is the symbolic of the truth. The fire, the light, the heat, which brings life back to the land of the dead. And I think this is actually what's going on here, right? Because the biblical term used for the land of the dead, including the limbo of the patriarchs and the limbo of the infants, is Hades, right? Because Hades is the Greek term, and the New Testament is written in Greek for the land of the dead. And the land in which, or the region by which the damned are sent, not just like those in limbo, but those who are actually condemned to everlasting punishment, it uses the word Tartarus in the Greek New Testament. And that's important because Tartarus is also the land where, in the Greek mythology, where, the evil gods, right, those who defied the natural order, were cast down to be punished for all of time, right? It's an inversion of the deification that the Christian soul awaits in the promise that they will, the promise by Christ that they will participate in the divine nature, right? So we see him pass here out of the land of the dead. Interesting that that's cathedral. I'm not entirely sure that I necessarily agree with this because, oh wait, you know what? Actually, this does make sense because it's not necessarily the church that's being represented here, but it is the cathedral, the false body, right? We even use that language with peer review mills, for example, in academia when we refer to the cathedral, is that ideological capture of all institutions. That is self-reinforcing, right? Because then, the capture of the universities reinforces the capture of the peer review mills, which reinforces the capture of the academics, which reinforces the capture of the news institutions, and the news institutions reinforce the capture of the universities, and all of these reinforce the capture of the political system and even the religious systems, right? Not to say that religion itself is evil, and in fact, actually, the triangle at the top is a classic, sign of the Trinity, right? The thing that everyone thinks of, the triangle with the eye in it, is actually not a Freemason symbol. It's actually originally a Christian symbol, because again, it's like the eye of God with each of the points representing the members of the Trinity, right? The triangle is actually really important for that. It's kind of like how the pentagram does have an occult use, but it also has a historical Christian use because it also can represent the 5 wounds of Christ, the 6 wounds actually of Christ: the wounding of the crown of thorns, the 2 hands, the 2 feet, nails between the hands and feet, and finally the wound to the heart through the spear of Longinus, right? So a lot of these symbols are multivalent. In fact, you can find pentagrams that actually have Christ inscribed into them to represent, to very clearly show this is a geometric representation of the wounds that Christ suffered. So this is actually kind of interesting. I don't know if he's attacking religion per se, but I have a sneaking suspicion that he's attacking the cathedral as a whole that holds all of the institutional capture together. But I could very easily see how someone would see this sign and say he's attacking Christianity as a whole in the church, right? Whereas he didn't necessarily attack the other religions, which very well could be the case. We didn't see them crumble in the background, but it could also be more along the lines of, like, I don't understand I don't really have an answer to the shamanic dance that is being performed in the rest of the video. That's kind of interesting, because that could very well be part of the cathedral that's currently collapsing. That's interesting. We have pyramids styled in the form of like the Great Pyramids at Giza, but also is common in a lot of these esoteric thoughts. And you have the sun, the source and summit of all light in the human imagination, right? Also a symbol of the divine at times, depending, you know, again, one of these multivalent symbols, right? Radiating outwards, this booming like halos, right? So it's light emanating light, and obviously, like the Christ figure here is moving towards the light. I don't know if he is the source of the light in this particular thing. So it's like, again, there's a lot of like unsettled imagery in here, but you see that like the sun has, in a sense, declared war on this land of ice, right? Seeks to dispel the darkness. And since, again, the pyramid is symbolic of these false worldviews, you see that it's the pyramids that come under direct attack. So in a sense, you can see that like the Christ figure enters into the world, enters into the domain of the devil, because, again, the devil is described figuratively as the god of the world because he has ensnared the world, right? And he enters into the world to destroy not the world itself, but the devil's hold on the world, which would in this case would be represented by the cathedral, right? Whereas, again, you have the omega point, the final, well, not omega point, right? Or the end, you know, the first and the last, right? The origin of all light, goodness, and love and heat, you know, the, you know, God, basically, right? You know, outside this entire system, untouched by the lie at all, and melting the light from the outside. So it's a two-pronged attack. From the outside and the inside, the devil's works crumble, right? This is a interesting video. There is a lot in here, and I'm pretty sure I missed plenty, to be perfectly honest. But it will be interesting to see what it is that I may have gotten correct and may have gotten wrong on the analysis videos. Gonna check some etymology for a moment. Alright, so now that we've gotten this should be a lot more straightforward, because now we're just gonna react to the explanations that were linked themselves. I would have loved to have also been able to potentially react to the interview. I will have to do that at a later time, right? But yeah, this will be interesting, because that's more or less what I got analyzing this entire thing. I do get the idea that like this is about dispelling illusion. I don't know how to necessarily interpret the dancing of the shamans in this particular video. But they were all contained in the world of ice, and they never actually leave the world of ice, right? They seem to dance around and celebrate around a central sort of fire and warmth and light, which may be a sort of pseudo-perennialism, this idea that like all religions contain the truth, which is not true by any means. Like, Gnosticism does not contain any truth in it, right? It only exists by parasitizing truth that other people recognize. But yeah, so that's gonna be an interesting thing. I'd love to hear y'all's opinion about this, because there's definitely a lot that I know I did not understand watching this. By the way, so I was asked to see this because of like the Hegelian comment I made. So I'm gonna just, before we go on to the analyses here, what I meant when I said George Bush is a Hegelian, right? Is that a right Hegelian? Is that when Hegel died, his students split off into two camps. They were the right Hegelians and the left Hegelians. This is the basis, not not originating point, but this is the basis of how we actually use left and right, politically speaking, in modern discourse. So Hegel taught that the state was the agent of God in the world, right? That history uses and discards man, and that the purpose of history was effectively to create a perfected state to then spread to the rest of the world this enlightened idea that he had, right? And this basically comes with the understanding that there is a universal man, right? That all of humanity effectively can be homogenized into one system. Again, this is the basis of global homo, right? Now, when Hegel died, there was this understanding that among the right Hegelians that we've resolved all historical contradictions, and now that we have the enlightened idea, the only thing we need to really do is expand the idea of the perfected state. Not that everyone has to come under a single empire, but that the idea of this perfected state and all that we have learned should be disseminated to all of the world, right? Well, the left Hegelians said this is bullshit. There are still clearly historical conflicts and historical contradictions that anthropological contradictions that need to be resolved. This is where Marx comes into play, right? Marx is a left Hegelian, and then from Marx, when people ultimately get dissatisfied with Marxism, they instead create their own left Hegelian movements, like fascism from Giovanni Gentile, or National Socialism from Rudolph Young, and then you have like the American almost National Socialism from Bellarmine, which is, by the way, why I don't say the Pledge of Allegiance. Not because America's bad, because the Pledge of Allegiance was written by a socialist as a spell to create a false sense of what the United States actually is. That's why I refuse to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I might do a video on this at some point, but there are nested metaphysical and like epistemological, eschatological assumptions in the Pledge of Allegiance that was written again by a socialist, which betray the actual ideological foundations of the United States outlined in the Declaration of Independence and in the works of the Founding Fathers. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm not a Jehovah's Witness. I actually know that, like, again, people oftentimes put their own metaphysical principles in what they write, and this was one of those propaganda pieces. The point of the Pledge of Allegiance is to change the framing of how Americans actually relate to the state. Again, because the idea, it's a Hegelian project. Spellcraft is kind of their entire project. But again, other examples of people who come off of like Karl Marx are like the radical feminists, for example, the, again, CRT theory, queer theory, all of these groups, right? But right Hegelianism itself inevitably breaks off every time, right? Because it's like, every time you move the dialectic, there will be someone who says, all right, we've finished the dialectical work. We have the idea of the perfect state. Now we just have to move this in accordance here, right? And this is exactly what we see in the global war on terror, with the whole spreading democracy to these people who are not fit for democracy because they do not believe in democracy, right? They believe in Sharia law, which is anti-democratic. So then what happened? What else do you call someone who believes that they have the enlightened idea? So American democracy has to be exported to all of these nations across the world because the American ideals are perfected, are ideals that work for all people across time and space, regardless of what their actual cultural dispositions are, right? This is right Hegelianism. The idea that America is a nation chosen by God for this particular purpose, which is a thing George W. Bush basically said on multiple occasions. Yeah, the man is a right Hegelian. He believed that America was the agent of God in the world. It sounded like someone I just outlined earlier, right? And that since America had this was the idea of, like, again, perfected statecraft, it would be exported not by empire, but by ideology across all the world. Did not work. Was doomed to fail from the outset. But yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to point this out. George W. Bush may not have been philosophically educated in the subject matter, but he was still a right Hegelian. He was still pulling from that exact stream of ideas. He is still functionally a right Hegelian, and that is extremely dangerous. But let's go on. Obama was a Hegelian too, but and anytime you heard the Democrats say our sacred democracy, yeah, they're leaning on that Hegelian idea. The thing is, the left Hegelians changed the definition of God to be the collective of all human beings, right? You could very well say that, like, the God of Marxism is the socialist man at the end of history, who is the collective of all mankind unified under an enlightened idea, right? You could say the same thing about fascism. The Italian fascist is undergirded by actual idealism as its foundation point. The idea that reality is intersubjectively generated by, cooperatively, all human beings. So then that's why every aspect of human life has to, and thought has to be controlled. Why? Because it turns out that if human beings collectively generate the world around them by perception, we as a collective are God. And so the state is not just the agent of God in the world. The state is God because they define state as the collective of all human activity, right? So yeah, man is a Hegelian. He's just not a left Hegelian. He's a right Hegelian. He doesn't necessarily believe that the collective of all mankind is God, but he does believe that he did believe that the state is the agent of God in the world, which was Hegel's mistake. But anyway, so let's get into this, right? Yeah, so let's see what I missed. I do actually have to note, funny enough, now that we're back here with people falsely claiming things are demonic when they're actually not, it is kind of really funny that oftentimes when people try to show how demons work, and therefore what to avoid, right? Literally exposing how the lie is cast so that you don't necessarily fall for the lie yourself. Every time this happens, you have some retard on the right saying that what you're doing is actually demonic. Without fail, every time. It is actually comical, and this is kind of why the right, quote unquote, loses these cultural conflicts. FEMA camp. Oh, I didn't even catch the FEMA camp thing open. Oh, I don't know when this is made too, so that would have missed it. We are all sheep in a box except the mark of the beast to roll the dice in order to play in this 3D matrix. Interesting. I mean, I kind of thought that would be like implicit. I didn't know that would have to be explained. Spotlight on incoming craft or illumination coming from craft. Airport runway lights turn on for the landing of some sort of aircraft, illuminating from... Interesting. Armed security guard with dogs out to investigate. Oh, you know what? Actually, yeah, fair enough. I actually didn't even notice the two towers burning in the background. I was focused on the goat. You know what? Fair enough. I did actually miss that one. Goat now in hypnotic trance, like state refuses help by shaking its head. So yeah, it's like, again, being spellbound, right? Number of letters 9, 11. What? Pillar of polarity. 3 pillars represent completion. Oh, you know what? Fair enough. Yeah, it is 9. Number of letters 9, and then you have 11 after that. This gets into like the point where it's like, okay, I mean, yeah, sure, that may have been planned, but at the same time, it's like, okay, we're getting a little bit navel gazy here. I didn't even think, you know what, fair enough. I didn't even think about like the pole for like the ring itself actually meaning the money part. Like the serpent part, yeah, fair enough. I caught that immediately. But like the actual structural foundation of it helping to create the money sign completely like escaped my notice. That's an entirely fair thing to do. 2 fingers on each side of the cross. Again, more occult symbolism regarding the number 11. Left, right, puppet, and additional layer of disenfranchisement, keeping you distracted while Draco weaves his web. Draco, dragon? There's definitely a cry of discomfort there. Woman is a teacher symbolizing knowledge, the goddess of wisdom, honoring the owl, Molech bird. That's a bit of a reach. That is a bit of a reach. Dancing for Baphomet. Hocus Pocus. I mean, yeah, he's putting on a show, fair enough, but... 2001, the village idiot, President Bush, the puppet on a string, is now a star highlighted on the Masonic floor. Oh, you know what? I didn't even think about like that particular issue. I've actually never seen that video. I'm gonna have to check that out. Inverted pentagram. Those aren't pentagrams. Those are 6-pointed. Like every one of them is 6-pointed. That'd be a hexagram. Let's see. 4 stars on the wall, and the 5th star is Bush. Let's see. Okay, the star on the floor is technically a pentagram, right? But the actual things highlighted are not. The 4 stars on the wall, and the 5th star is Bush completing an... Oh, never mind. I should have read the thing. My bad. Bush completing an inverted pentagram controlled by satanic forces in the hidden hand. How... Okay, so from the perspective of the girl we see later, yeah, sure, it's an inverted pentagram. From our perspective, it doesn't really seem to be an inverted pentagram. You can see that by, like, the point that would be representing the head is actually... I'm not sure I'd buy this one, but I guess you could do this with like perspective play with the girl who sees it.
Shame on. Shame on. Shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on you.
False flags. I mean, a false flag is like by definition, like, again, so it has 2 different meanings, right? It could refer to like a literal flag that's in like false, or it could also refer to, again, an incident that is perpetrated for the purpose of eliciting an effect through a lie, right? So like, for example, in the hypothetical scenario that 9/11 was actually an inside job, that'd be a false flag, right? Because the purpose of that is to create an incident to elicit a reaction through a lie. 9/11 was like the actual attacks themselves, like again the plane hitting the Pentagon, yeah, that's pretty like not debatable. Like we actually have the data on, like we actually have hard evidence on that. We actually do have people who have been able to replicate the claims outside of like controlled environments in like independently. So it's like again, the 9/11 Commission report on how the attacks actually happened, pretty solid. That being said, whether or not the CIA was involved, possibly. It's not the first time an intelligence agency in the United States or anywhere else, like the KGB or Mossad or fucking MI5, hasn't done something specifically to disenfranchise their entire, their own nation. Oh, wait a minute. I know what to talk about. It took me a moment. False flags is the actual points on the map. The pinpoints on the map. Okay, that makes more sense. That actually makes more sense. So, what are these referring to? Not entirely sure. Maybe because it looks like the Oklahoma one is Oklahoma City, so maybe the Oklahoma City bombing. But I'm not entirely sure. I mean, the one in New York is obviously like 9/11. I just don't know what the other like pins would be referring to as far as like false flags. The owl is not a symbol of Marduk, but I get what you're saying, right? The whole owl from fuck, what is it? Alex Jones actually son of a bitch. He actually has a video of is it harm? Is it harm? No, care. That's what it was. The classic video of the fucking my brain is spazzing on me. I can't remember the name. Damn. So I was right. It is September 11th is the New York false flag attack. Son of a bitch. I'm my brain is not. Fuck. Hold on. Let me get my refresher. Actually, you know what? This might help. Hold on. I am kind of embarrassed that I have to look this up because normally I'd be able to pull this up off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure it was the Bilderbergs, but I'm not entirely sure what the compound was, though. That's the, but I'm pretty sure the owl was actually Care. Bohemian Grove, that's what it was. Son of a bitch. It's like, normally I'd be able to, like, describe it. But yeah, the owl is the owl, fucking, ritual is the cremation of Care. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Man, I couldn't remember that. There's evolution on the... Like, yeah, fair enough. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even notice the evolution of man at the top of the thing. Clock shows 12. I mean, fair, unless it's like a... It could be... I don't know what that... Like, the meaning of that is... Complete... oh, completion. There it goes. Yeah, fair enough. Missile attack representing war or phallic symbol. A bit of a reach there. Let's see. 11, 2 pillars, again, illumination / ascension. Okay. The owl on the left, symbolically worshipped at... I knew that was coming. Right? Fair enough. And I actually do think that that's probably what that's referring to. It's a sacrificial shrine to Marduk. Marduk? Maybe not. I'd have to look into that, because... there is a lot of false claims about like the Babylonian religion in modern times. Not really. Most of the errors in our modern world are Egyptian in origin, not Mesopotamian. House on fire or crab claw, Cancer. Oh, interesting. Shark represents corporate greed and thirst for money. Hangman represents us. Shark attack. Okay, so some of these are speculative, obviously, right? Like, again, the question mark here. I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure the hangman represents us, right? I gathered that. I didn't even think about the crab claws. That's interesting. Because then, like, this actually does kind of look like a crab when you point it out. Bush can't continue. He is now under demonic possession. Actually, you know what? Fair enough. That could be exactly what this is alluding to. I just completely missed that. Then again, to be fair, a lot of this stuff is probably something that would be caught on a second watch. Oh, interesting. Hold on. The shark is yelling in his ear. I actually didn't even notice that the first time. Let's see. Missing the letters I-O-U. Ha! Okay, I didn't even think about that. That is actually really clever, though. Oh, my goodness. Missing letters I-O-U. We are drowned in debt. Yeah, like $20 trillion in debt most. Like, I actually went on the issue of debt slavery in a previous video, right? We all represent the one-legged hangman, which is also the goat or sheep with the tongue sticking out, the sacrificial lamb. Let's see. We can't walk on our 2 feet, dependent on the system from money sharks, i.e. banksters and Wall Street. I mean, to be fair, there was a reason why the founding fathers were very suspicious of a national bank, right? Or anything resembling what would be the Federal Reserve, and it turns out they had a good reason for that. 3 hearts, maybe the Holy Trinity symbolically. I don't know about that, Chief. Okay, yeah, so, yeah, I actually agreed this is probably a reference to false flag. I just don't know what the fuck happened in Florida or in the middle of the Gulf, to be perfectly honest. Let's see, 4 disasters shown on the map, more to come. You know what, that might be the issue. Heart image below shows a left and right ventricle on the atrium, another 11 symbol. Okay, we're getting a little bit wacky here, right? Just like, oh yeah, the left and right ventricle symbolize 11. I mean, you could also say that they're like people reaching. If you look at it, like, I think the FF, the law of non-contradiction violation, might be a little bit more intentional than that, right? Chinese horoscope, January 23, 2012, February to February 9th, 2013 is the year of the water dragon. Okay. What does that have to do symbolically with snowflakes equals ice age? I mean, yeah, I remember the whole global cooling, the devil horns. Fair enough. I didn't even catch that, but yeah, fair enough, right? Snowflakes equals ice age. Interesting. Not entirely like climate change. Yeah, maybe, but again, this is where we get into the area where it's like it's so opaque that it's kind of bordering on navel gazing, if that's the case. Left and right hemispheres of the brain split by lightning or separated, end of duality. I actually think this is more of like a conflict that's being intentionally stoked between the left and the right by dividing it, right? I actually think that might be more of the thing there. It's like you're trying to split a person against himself, right? Which is a large part of what ends up happening when ideological possession is on the table, right? It's like you don't really believe something, but at the end of the day, you constructed an enemy in the back of your head that is more sophisticated than your actual articulated beliefs. So whenever it comes into conflict between you and that ideological enemy in the back of your head, you always lose. So I think that might be more along that. And again, I can't help but notice like the missing of the law of non-contradiction violation here, which I think is probably the most important thing on this entire board. Because yeah, it's like right there. It's the law of not violating the law of non-contradiction leads to the splitting of the brain. Like I don't exactly understand how that got missed. Shape-shifting into Obama. Yeah, Bush and Obama actually weren't nearly as different as presidents as people like to think, to be perfectly honest. The right Hegelian and the left Hegelian actually don't like have all that much difference in what they want of society. The difference is where they want it to stop. Okay. Pointing out that a canine is a little bit elongated as a vampire, if anything. I'm tracing like my teeth with my own tongue right now. Yeah, my canine is the one I have, right? Or the one on the top I have at least. is longer than the rest of my teeth. Yeah, they're fair. They a little bit of a reach, but then again, there's a question mark here, so fair enough, right? One eye covered or closed is an occult symbolic reference to the all-seeing eye or the eye of Horus. A little bit reaching here. This goes more like a wink of like deception, in my opinion. It's like you know I'm lying. You know I know I'm lying. There's nothing you can really do about it, right? I would go more on like again the whole flaunting the fact that you know he's lying to your face kind of deal. Yeah. Reverse crescent moon on cheek represents being Muslim. Yeah, that's a question mark. Hey, this goes back to like Barack Hussein Obama kind of deal. I don't think Obama was a Muslim. I think we have a better argument that King Charles is a closeted Muslim, and I don't even think he's a Muslim. I think he's just fucking retarded. Let's see. Mole on cheek may be symbolic of a star or crescent moon. Did Obama have a mole on his cheek? Because if he did, then there's not really any symbolic importance to this. Let me hold on. Let me give a check. This is one of those things where it's like you gotta make sure to check your what you're saying against a reasonably skeptical source at times, because it's like make sure that you don't go into your own schizo ramblings. Let me check something. Obama face. I don't think he has a mole. I hate. Well, actually, he does have a mole, and he has a darkened spot, like right where that would be. I don't know what the mark on his face is, though. It could be that. It could be a crescent moon and a star. But usually, when I see crescent moon and star, the star is usually within the crescent, not outside the crescent. He is lacking a mole on the nose, though. There's a discolored spot there on Obama's face, but also we're missing the part where he looks exhausted, right? He does look tired. Which I think is definitely a thing we need to keep in mind as well. Is like being a president fucking ages you, especially if you're a president who is probably involved in some ideological project. It is almost certainly extremely exhausting. Yeah, the fake ass laugh. That is a strange conclusion. So this person says F equals negative X F with the accentuation marks above the F if it's Fahrenheit equals Celsius 0 point question mark. Fahrenheit 911? Yeah, no, this is the law of non-contradiction thing. Let's see. Obama has white Masonic gloves. His teleprompter, lol, let's see, telling him to laugh shows that politicians are just actors and puppets following a script. Yeah, okay, I can get behind this. Let's double check the prompter claim, though. You're right. Okay, yeah, I actually straight up missed this part. Lol might be another 11, symbol of evolution. Has 9/11. Yeah. Don't know about that one, Chief. And suddenly, a startling realization arose in Lily. This apple is not mine, she thought. It belongs to someone else. It seems like this individual has a difficult time finding something with this. Interesting, he's actually stepping on a coin. I don't know what the symbolic importance of that is. It is kind of interesting that like this sequence, I'm just gonna go to the art part right here. It is almost like a claymation style like effect that is here. Just I kind of wanted to point that out. I actually really like the artistry in this. I missed that at first. I missed that at first. Right there, it says Psalm 23. Okay. Let's look up Psalm 23. This should be interesting. Let us use the King James Version, though, because I won't get copyright struck for that. Sorry about this. Okay. For some reason, I am lagging very hard. Hold on, actually. Sorry. Might as well spotlight DJ Nathaniel. Because Psalm 23 is actually pretty short. Oh, for the love of... Sorry. I'm not doing Spanish. We'll do this.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Yeah, so very short psalm, to be perfectly honest, right? I just wanted to, if anyone's watching this, DJ Nathaniel has been on a quest to turn all of the psalms, because they are songs, into music using Suno, and I'm like, you absolute mad lad. Very, okay, fair enough. So, there was that highlight, right? Again, we're going to use the King James Version because it's not copyrighted. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. Which is interesting. Which is an interesting juxtaposition between what we're seeing right here with we have no green pastures. This is all barren wasteland of ice, right? Let's see. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. Here we see the exact opposite. We see man in a state with a broken soul, but, and no state, none of the waters are still or even usable, right? Let's see. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yeah, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. So here we're at this part in the psalm. So we're not at the green pastures, we're not at the still waters. We are not at we are at specifically the though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. So here there is no comfort, because it seems to be a place where God is absent, right? Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. We don't see that here. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Well, none of this is happening, because I'm pretty sure the implication here is that we have abandoned God and entered into a state of godlessness. That's what I am assuming is going on here, right? Like, we have entered into a false society, i.e. this prison that everyone's locked in, right? And that we have chosen the lie over the truth. And this has split the United States. Yeah, so they seem to be struggling with the shaman as well, to be perfectly honest. I'm not entirely sure what to do with a shaman as of right now. So hopefully by the end of this, maybe I'll thought of something. Let's see. She definitely, though, is highlighted. She's literally like separated out, not just from the rest of the faceless mass, as I've talked earlier, but also, again, she's literally highlighted, not just in her distinction, but in the fact that, like, she's, again, separated in a circle, which actually is interesting because in the occult practice, the circle actually is a boundary marker, right? Because it separates, like, it symbolizes completeness, right? So, but it's also completely enclosed. But you don't necessarily have to be an occultist to recognize this. Like, oftentimes, for example, you want to highlight something, what do? You go and you draw a circle around it, right? Like, if you can't just highlight the text, oftentimes you will circle the object that you are looking to highlight, because, you know, it draws your attention. Okay. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so you gotta do more than just point to something. You gotta do more than point to something in order to actually show your point, right? You actually have to show why it is I should associate each one of these individuals with 12 signs of the zodiac, because there are other 12 symbols, right? Like, 12 is a thing that pops up all the time. I'm not saying it's not the 12 signs of the zodiac. I'm just saying you need to show me why it is the case. Like, are these placed in spatial relationship to each other on the star chart, on the star map, for example? I mean, yeah, the exit is open. Like, we can leave, right? Let's see, 12 signs of the zodiac. Yeah, nah, I don't really find this particular part all that convincing. It would help if we had a higher resolution video for this. I don't mean to be mean. It would help if we had a higher resolution video of this. This does not help you. This does not help you, my friend. We don't have 12 disciples because we have 12 zodiac signs, and we don't have 12 zodiac signs because we have 12 disciples. Oh, I actually missed this part too. The exit is highlighted when we're focusing on her. Castor and Pollux, twins in the constellation of Gemini, equals exit. What? Let's see. Completion, end of time, tape runs out. Like, behind Lily, there are 2 pillars. There's 2 highlights. Okay, I can see the High Priestess analogy, especially if there's like an apple associated with it, but this doesn't exactly help you when your second image of the High Priestess doesn't have her with an apple. See, twin pillars of Boaz and Yachin, pillars of Atlas, pillars of the Hall of Truth, pillars of the gods of the dawning light, pillars of Shu, pillars of... Yeah, the whole idea of, like, the celestial vault is very common, right? That's because, like, again... Okay. Or is it the two, or is it celestial pillars? What is the actual symbolic language we're working here with, my guy?
Shame on. Shame on you. Shame on you.
There are 3 pillars in the tree of life.
For me, take that for the year. Take that for the year.
Okay. I mean, yeah, twins have a symbolic importance across all cultures. What? Okay. I'm sorry, but you gotta explain your thesis a little bit more than that, my guy. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like on close. Okay, so this person seems to be like working through it themselves. On close inspection, Lily now feels the apple is poisoned or contaminated. I'll be honest. Like again, it seems more along the lines of like, yeah, sure, maybe this is Two Towers imagery right here. Fair enough. That we do have this like association with twos with like 2 straight lines, right? Although the bunny is not a straight line. That being said, it seems more like they're being highlighted for symbolic value, right? Again, like the exit is open. It is something that she has opportunity to access, right? Then you have, for example, the rabbit here. Rabbits, depending on like where you come from, they have their own symbolic meaning as well. So like not highlighting the fact that it is a rabbit doesn't exactly help your case. Okay, here we go. DNA strands. Is that the entangling here? Let's see, split apple represents reintegration of both hemispheres of the brain. Duality begins again. I mean, possibly. I would imagine the apple itself in that case would be the reintegration. Let's see. Coin may be crown or the letter E. Doesn't have either of them on there. Actually, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Nope. Never mind. That's not what I thought it was. Shoe represent the watchers. Worms equal masculine and feminine. I mean, like complementaries that come into contact with each other because they're both left and right. Oh, you know what? Yeah, they are right. The split apple represents the integration of both the hemispheres. Because yes, what was split apart now comes back together, and after coming back together, the lotus arises, and the lotus is a sign of enlightenment. Yeah. Creation, new beginnings, union, new life seeded, yeah, death and rebirth, lotus flower, yeah. Okay, so he asks the question, are the words love spelled out? And the answer to that doesn't seem to be the case. It would have been kind of interesting, but I don't know. This might have been a part where they were a little bit too artsy-fartsy for their own good, to be perfectly honest. Okay. 12 minus 1 equals 11. Lily, and you know what? Fair enough. I don't know. They never gave the name to the girl. Maybe that was something that was given in the interview with Alex Jones, right? But it would be really funny if Lily, the flower that she ends up giving the president, is actually a lily. That is actually kind of funny if that's the case. Let's see. Lily let go her apple. She is no longer in the Matrix. 11 means completion of the game. Obama now sweats. Yeah, because like if the spell breaks, then you lose your power because the spell is the source of your power, right? Yeah, okay, I can see that. Especially if like the apple is the like signifier of the deception, then giving up the deception. Yeah, okay, I can see that. Clock tower shows 12. Okay, hold on, I gotta go back. This was significantly longer than I expected it to be. This should be fun. Graffiti on the wall says Psalm 23, clock tower shows 12. Yeah, we already went through the Psalm, so... America's flag splits in half. More Twin Towers 9/11 imagery. I have no idea how you can see 12 on this clock from this distance. Like, yes, fair enough, it does say 12, but that is not from the place where you want to necessarily highlight that. Twin Towers falling, America symbolized as drowned in debt to usher in the New World Order or future false flag. Those are potentially reaching, but I could see how you could come to this conclusion. Suicide swan dive, or does this represent Mercury? I take the suicide swan dive as more likely, to be perfectly honest. And if that is the case, if that links to all the other shamans, then it would indicate that like all the other religions are themselves just dancing around, incomplete sparks of light, but ultimately lead nowhere except for, drowning in the sea as well. Let's see. Reflection of Psalm 23 spell above Obama's head spells out Zion. I don't see that, but maybe my brain is just not connecting the pattern together. That is entirely possible. The Aldebaran, the Eye of the Bull. Let's see. Constellation of Taurus. Some of these are definitely reaching. NASA, Egypt. Yeah, no, some of these are definitely reaching. Okay. Lightning bolt symbolism in the more lightning symbolizes more than just pagan gods, right? Let's see. Big Ben, yeah, okay, fair enough. I could see that as being the inspiration. Possible connection to London 2012 Zion Olympics. I don't know about that, Chief. False flag, okay. Actually, interesting. I don't know if that's the case, but I have a sneaking suspicion it's more about, again, how the country is torn in two by the spell. It's that whole idea of, like, the people united are dangerous, the people divided are malleable. Fair enough. We already read this part, so... All right, so as far as that goes, yeah, some of these things that he pointed out are, I would say actually pretty plausible. Other parts I'm like, kind of reaching, guy. I hate to be a buzzkill, but I don't really think this inference is justified, at least in the sense by what you provided. You're gonna have to show a little bit more work than that to make that make sense. But maybe I just am not aware of this epistemological lens that he's working with, right? I mean, I've spent a decent amount of time learning about, like, Marxist epistemological lens, learning about feminist epistemological lens, learning about queer theory epistemological lens, right? Maybe the Freemason epistemological lens, if there is one, I'm not that familiar with. I only know anything about, like, the Scottish Rite because I have Morals and Dogma on my desk. But I'm not desk, but what is it called? It's early in the morning, chat. I woke up way too early. Shelf. That's what it was. But yeah, I have Morals and Dogma on my shelf, and yeah, Freemasonry is fucking idiotic, to be perfectly honest. But my criticism of Freemasonry is largely, at least nowadays, largely the same as like Ashmize. But yeah, there is some Masonic imagery in this as well. So let's see. There we go. Part 2. Apparently, part 3 is not. Oh, this was 13 years ago. Hold on. Let's check something. Is there a 3? Not yet. Okay. That's fair. You know. All right, let's see what we got here. You're gonna need a little bit more than that. The wrong orientation, and just because you have like a vague similarity doesn't necessarily mean it's the same thing. A Roman salute on a Roman statue does not necessarily have any indication of like anywhere else in history. Lightning in Hebrew means barach. I think he means the Hebrew word is barach. Hold on, let me double check that, because that's actually, hold on. Because I remember that being possibly the case in Arabic. Let me double check something. Okay, let's see. Let's go here. Let's see. Arabic is bark. Okay, fair enough. Let's see. Let's go to the Hebrew section now. And that would be barak. Okay, yeah, fair enough. So that is correct. Okay. Okay, hold on. Anagram of Mason is clearly seen in the top window reflection from Psalm 23 below. Hold on. Because that first letter looks like it could be both an M and an A. I could see the S. I could see the O. But what is this letter on the first pole? This only really works if you assume that like one of these jumbled up letters is actually functioning as two letters at once. Maybe, I don't know. Only one star left on the split American flag. May represent North American Union coming, unifying of Canada, US, and Mexico with the Amero. Yeah, that's not likely to happen. My thing of that, like, if there's only one star and it has symbolic importance, right, that'd be a state breaking away, and the most likely state to break away from this entire thing, to be perfectly honest, is the one that threatens breaking away the most often, which is Texas, right? Just pointing that out there. A little reaching with that one. Lights form a pyramid. I'm going to speed this up just because, again, I'm more interested in what they have to say about the video than rewatching this video, you know, to pad out the length. Okay, both towers are inversely opposite of each other, polarity north-south symbolism. Twin towers look like two legs of a woman upright and her arms outstretched below. Hold on. Okay, let's go back to this a little bit. I can kind of see it. Okay. Twin towers look like two legs of a woman upright and her arms outstretched below. Actually, no, I actually don't see it now. I thought for a moment they were like, because for the one on the right-hand side, right, it almost looks like she's got two hands clasped together and like stretched up and out, and you can see the head behind her arms, right? And then you can see like where the mass of ice that's also lit reaches up and conjoins with that somewhat conical shape that leads into there. Almost so you could possibly say that like that's the legs, right? On the other side, it's like if you go on the one on the right, on the left-hand side, you could see the little crevasse in the actual thing as like maybe being like the backside and then reaching upwards. But even that, I'd be like, it's kind of a reach, but I could see how someone would reach that conclusion. And that would look more like, in this case, the unity of the male and the female, because the one on the right-hand side is defined by curves, which is usually more feminine, or the one on the left-hand side is much more a straight angular design, which is usually associated more with the masculine. But again, I don't really buy that argument. I'm just trying to spitball here, like a potential steel man. The problem here is that it's not so much, some of these observations are not so much the result of like objectively looking at a symbol and with use and its contextual use, as much as it is drawing parallels that may not necessarily actually hold up to scrutiny. Because it's like, again, with the 12 forms representing the 12 signs of the zodiac, it's like, I mean, maybe, but do you have anything other than the number 12 to really like do this? Yeah, sure, the circle could represent the earth. I mean, let's be fair, the sign of the earth in astrology is a circle with like two lines through it, right? One dividing it horizontally, the other one dividing it vertically, right? Representing north, south, east, and west. But the circle also represents more than just the earth itself, right? We use circles to represent the solar system, for example, right? And I guess technically that would probably also work. I don't know if like I don't know if Mars would have the same, it would probably have the same zodiac signs as Earth, actually thinking about it now. But again, circle just represents completion oftentimes too, right? Diagrams in the ancient days sometimes of the universe are of a circle. In fact, actually the monad is a circle with a dot in the center, right? Because the one and the all are actually unified as a singular entity, right? The completeness is in the one and in the all, which emanate from and to each other, right? So it's like, you need a little bit more. See, the towers have fallen, now look to represent a phallic symbol with a man's arms outstretched. Except that actually just looks like what they looked like when it collapsed. Symbolic merging of the masculine and the feminine. Okay, well, I brought that up earlier. I mean, sure, maybe there is some like symbolic representation of like the collapse of distinctions, but it's like you need a little bit more. You need to actually show why that's the case. I mean, yeah, Osama bin Laden, Dove of Peace, makes a fast exit as war begins. Osama bin represents Islam. For many people, the image of the crescent moon. Oh yeah, see right here. You can see it right here on the Turkish flag, right? The star is often in the at the negative space of the crescent itself, which is why I don't buy that sign earlier. I already mentioned the CIA patch. The lunar eclipse shows a timeline of the future attack or representing September 11, 2001. Don't know about that one, Chief. I think I think it might just be more. I think it might be easier to assume that, like, again, the red represents the bloodshed of Islam, right? Oil dripping in the ocean might be the Gulf oil spill in 2010, or the motive for invading Iraq. And so, I'm pretty sure in this case it's more of the like motive for invading Iraq, alleged in this case, right? But at the same time, because again, like right there, you have the counter propaganda piece of like Bush's war for oil. But yeah, the oil dripping into the sea is also probably just a reference to the fact that like oil drilling can be quite destructive to the environment, right? It can be quite polluting. Western media have dubbed America as a Zionist nation, all to create separation and hate, to incite violence and ultimately war through media propaganda and mind control. Kind of. Israel actually opposed the war in Iraq, funny enough. They didn't necessarily oppose the war in Iran for different reasons, because that is an entirely different beast. But they actually did lobby against the war in Iraq. Norway spiral. Let's see. Notice the vortex spiral in the sky and the Statue of Liberty crumbles. Possibly. I actually forgot about this event, I'm not gonna lie. Snake serpent in the Garden of Eden, seeding life. Reptilian geneticists closely watching and monitoring. The serpent is, oh, okay, yeah, this is the, yeah, I remember this symbol, actually. Yeah, this is common to, like, the Orphic symbology. Okay, yeah. The serpent is a very important symbol within both Freemasonry and Christianity. It was also important in ancient civilizations. It shouldn't be a shock to you to learn that Freemasonry worships the serpent. Well, I mean, it depends on how closely we take this line, like, seriously, to be perfectly honest. You have to remember that, like, again, initiates and, like, because you could say the same thing from a Christian perspective of, like, any false religion, right? you really could, right? And it doesn't exactly actually, like, on a, like, objective level, actually, on an objective level, it's, like right and wrong, but for different reasons. It's right in the sense that, like, obviously, like, the ultimate, like, origination point for the religion is the serpent in that case, if Christianity is true, right? So worship of Krishna, if Christianity is true, would be worship of the serpent. Same thing as, like, worship of, like, Amaterasu in Japan. So you could say that, for example, Japan worships the serpent, right? But you could also say that, like, again, you could also say that, like, if we're going to restrict ourselves to knowingly worship the devil, right? Then it depends. The problem with the Freemasonry conversation is all of the Freemasonry books are actually out there. You can actually read them, but there's also a lot of people who made money off of lying about Freemasonry. And this is the same thing actually that happened with Judaism. Like, there's all, like, the Talmud is out there for you to read, but there's also people who have written books telling you how to read the Talmud, both among Orthodox Jews and among anti-Semites, that are lying about how you actually are supposed to read the Talmud. And you can find this in, like, anti-Christian polemics as well, right? You have plenty of people who have written books on how to read the Bible, but also, you know, and a lot of these people are being, are telling you how to read it in one way, who believe it, but they're wrong. But then there are also people who are telling you how to read the Bible who don't believe it, and they're being malicious about it. And then you have people who do and don't believe, in the claims of the Bible, who actually do know how to read the Bible and actually are helping people out there. So you have to be discerning about a lot of this stuff, right? The whole thing with like all of this is we have to also be careful not to see communists in our soup. We actually do know certain people who were authors about books in like Freemasonry who actually were like shown to be genuinely liars about the subject matter. And then we also have books that were written by Freemasons who actually are just, they were never expected that these books would get out. And so, you know, we could trust them because, again, they were writing to their own people, right? The thing about Freemasonry is like their whole concept of like the architect, the grand architect, is not actually a satanic concept, right? It's not explicitly satanic, but rather what it is it's Gnostic. It uses a lot of very Gnostic imagery in the, especially Neoplatonic imagery, right? In the way that it formulates the understanding of God, right? But yeah. And you can see this because it's like, if it was genuinely satanic, right, then a number of the founders, because a number of the founders of the United States were themselves actually Freemasons. Not all of them, some of them were Catholic, for example. So then they're, at the time, Freemasonry and Catholicism, and even nowadays Freemasonry and Catholicism are absolutely incompatible. You cannot be both a Catholic and a Freemason. One, because there are doctrinal issues with Freemasonry, because Freemasonry does actually have doctrines. Again, there's a Ash Mize video about Freemasonry. I'll put in the video description that I'll give suggest people watch. But I'll also probably do a react on that video as well later down the line. So, yeah, it's like there's a lot of false information about Freemasonry, and there's a lot, propaganda both for and against it. A lot of propaganda, and then there's like, which drowns out the good information. This is like one of those things that makes this topic really annoying, right? Because some of the founders were Freemasons. Some of the founders were Catholic. Some of the founders were like deist, and some of the founders were, Protestant. We had a lot of different like competing views in the formation of the Declaration of Independence. If like just pointing that out there, right? It's like we do have to come to some understanding that like if this was such a civilizational like tension here, then it would be unthinkable that deeply Catholic founders would at all cooperate with people that they knew were also Freemason, unless they could articulate the doctrine of the Declaration of Independence and the subsequent constitutions in such a way that it was not leading to that agenda, right? So anyway, so yeah, the Freemasonry doesn't worship the serpent in any way that's distinct from like how you would say Krishnaism worships the serpent, right? The serpent does have symbolic importance in Freemasonry, but it's not active it's not active Satanism most of the time. You can always find, and the problem with Freemasonry is, again, it's not like, there's a lot of variation within Freemasonry, just like there's a lot of variation within Judaism, right? So different lodges will believe wildly different things at times, and this is a problem because this is like a foundational problem, right? Right? Because there is such variation in belief, it becomes hard to pin down what specifically you're criticizing at times, and this is by design to avoid accountability for what you believe. But yeah. Anubis weighs the soul against the feather. Anubis and Jesus traveling to the underworld in our 3D reality. Why do they keep saying 3D reality? Are they expecting there to be some kind of higher reality? Hold on. Pyramids on chest, the heart being the capstone, or symbolically the all-seeing eye. Okay. Let's see. Winged heart of the Sufi. Falcon head can be seen in the chest representing Jesus' heart. Jesus/Horus. Oh my god, are we going with fucking mythicism? Again, I don't discount that this might have some like Egyptian imagery seeded into it. Again, you got to do more than just assert it. You have to explain the reasoning. In New Age spirituality, the third eye may symbolize a state of enlightenment or the evocation of mental images having deeply personal, spiritual, psychological significance. Yeah, like the ajna. Let's see. Reptilian skin. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, reptilian overlords meme, right? Earrings of Saturn serve Satan. Let's see. Inverted. Well, a ring doesn't just. Okay. I have been consistently losing faith in this particular interpreter. Inverted pyramid, as above, so below. Okay, that makes more sense as something you could argue. So the as above, so below principle is a Hermetic principle. It's not a Freemasonry principle. The Hermeticists are the ones who come up with it. So I'm going to call it a Hermetic principle. As above, so below basically outlines that as in heaven, so on earth, right? That as in the created order, is in the formative order. That, again, ultimately, the world we live in is a reflection of a higher reality. So we can learn about the higher reality by learning about the lower reality. And to an extent, this is true, right? The Christian tradition does accept that you can learn about God through his creations. But the reason that the as above, so below tradition is rejected in Christianity is because it is the idea that there isn't really this essential difference between the higher reality and the lower reality, right? They are, in a sense, a continuous, chain of being that are not substantially different from each other. They are different in appearance only. Let's see, this character represents the ego, keeping you distracted and stuck in the left hemisphere of the brain. The hemisphere thing is not actually how that works. Let's see, plugged into the matrix and the reptilian part of the brain, representing duality, negative thoughts, anger, and confusion, separating, ultimately lowering our vibration through fear and limitation. Okay, so the vibration thing is another occult thing. The vibration thing comes from the Kabbalion, which is a Hermetic text. Draco is an energy vampire after your power for your attention. He is invented by the CIA to steal our thrill, right? Are we just gonna like move over the fact that like if we're gonna go by this thing, the pyramid, the upside down pyramid here, may resemble that on the dollar? Like, because you can see at the bottom of the pyramid that the top of the pyramid is actually disconnected from the rest of the pyramid, and there is a darkened spot where the eye would be. And you even have, like, if you look at the circle, you'll see that there's several curves which seem to create a ribbon that folds over in itself, right? And yeah, at the very bottom of the jawline, it almost looks like the same kind of pattern you find on an American dollar. So it's like the confidence dollar, which I guess would be like part of the spell because it's not actually worth anything, but you are made to believe it's worth something, even though it's not actually backed up by fucking like gold, silver, even brass, and not even really backed by petrol, because we left the petrodollar years ago. We're operating under the confidence dollar now. Let's see, today's society, we're so dependent on drugs that without they would be lost without them. From nasal spray to okay, so the nasal spray one is okay. I did miss the drugs down there, but yeah, the nasal spray one I'm gonna have to do a reaction on too, because the nasal spray one is actually true. People do not understand how addictive certain nasal sprays can actually be. But yeah, so yeah, I actually missed the drugs on the floor the first time. So yeah, stock market crash. I mean, we already talked about this. I didn't outline it per se, but yeah. Okay, you know, this one is definitely easier to stomach. I did miss this. This one is definitely easier to just give you this one, right? because these actually do look like protractor tools, right? Yeah, so obviously stealth bombers, but now in the shape of like Freemason symbols, the compass and the square. Okay, I'll give you this one. This one is pretty. I'll give you this one. This one is pretty solid. Okay, so the illuminated calf may be symbol for the Lamb of God. Okay, you're gonna have to be a little. Okay, interesting visual pun, but I mean, the interesting visual pun, but again, we're reaching a little bit here. Jesus / Horus's calf are illuminated, showing that he has come from the light, now traveling into the underworld, led by Anubis. Yeah, I mean, I already mentioned the underworld travel here. I don't know that he's being led by Anubis, but I mean, Anubis is holding the divine scepter carried by kings and gods as simply a black jackal or as a dog accompanying Isis. Anubis had 3 important functions. He supervised the embalming of bodies, he received the mummy into the tomb and performed the opening of the mouth ceremony, and then conducted the soul of the field, conducted the soul in the field of celestial offerings. Most importantly, Anubis monitored the scales of truth to protect the dead from deception and eternal death. Anubis's head is pointing forcibly toward forward. His pointed ears are upright, representing 2 pillars or the number 11. You're a bit reaching here. Let's see. When Jesus comes into view, we can see 9 markings on Anubis's left ear, making yet another 9/11 connection. Okay, maybe. I don't personally see it, but also the thing is I have bad color vision, so it just might be me being unable to see it. Jesus / Horus and Anubis are now about to perform the opening of the mouth ceremony in the underworld. Yeah, the part. Yeah. Let's see. Threefold flame of the heart, love, power, and wisdom, each placed in an area corresponding to the chakras. Okay. I didn't see them correspond to any place but the heart chakra. The winged heart of Sufism. I mean, yeah, I can give you that, right? Falcon head can be seen in the chest, representing Jesus as Horus. Let's see. I don't see that, to be perfectly honest. Like, I legitimately don't see that. Okay. Horus and Anubis. I mean, yeah, the Egyptians had a bunch of composite gods because the large part is all the gods are kind of like one entity, just emanating out into multiplicities of forms. The kingdom of heaven lies within, flame of truth. I mean, that is a possible interpretation of what happened in this video. Okay, so I don't know about that, Chief. Right? This analysis, which was linked in the video that I found, not. I don't really. So there's a lot in there. I'm like, I don't know about that, Chief. A little bit schizo, but I really would have liked to have been able to actually react to the interview with the actual guy who made it, but. Yeah, so there we go. There was Heliophantus. I don't think that there was being this illusion drawn between Horus and Jesus in this particular video, right? I just don't find it very compelling. It is very symbol heavy, but I've already given my assessment of what I think is in this particular video, right? It is a strange, definitely meme heavy, and I know we think usually meme is in like a funny video, right? Funny joke, but no, meme is in like cultural symbol. It's a very meme heavy video. There is a lot of depth in here, and it's kind of interesting that after like 13 years, we never got the third of the Schizo review when we only really got 3 minutes into the video, and it's a 7-minute video. I don't know. I just find that interesting. So yeah, I'll concede that video did notice some things that I'd like, yeah, you know what, fair enough. I can concede you that. But a lot of it is just like, nah, you're gonna have to work a lot harder to actually show that that's the case, right? So yeah, is anyone wanting to hold on? If anyone wants like a primer into what Freemasonry actually is, I would suggest Ash Mize, because he actually points out how dumb Freemasonry is from the get-go. Yeah, this is a good starting point. If this thing can load. Yeah. With this video, the deep moral issue in Freemasonry, right? So, yeah, I will link this in the video description, and I will remember at some point in the future to do a commentary on this video as well. But yeah, so there we go. That's my commentary for this particular video. Definitely a strange video. There is a lot to unpack here, and probably much more than I noticed myself. And that's about all I got to say about this. Yeah, there's a lot of unanswered questions I have in this video, which prevent me from like giving a detailed review of what's going on. Because like even like if the Egyptian symbolism is to be believed, then yeah, it's like the boat being led into the sun dies and rises every night in the Egyptian story. And yeah, if like the sun is the summit and source of all truth, and like Jesus Christ himself is the light, then yeah, this would be basically not the pillage of Horus, but rather more akin to like the pillage, like the ferry of like Ra across the underworld. Yeah, no, like there's a lot in here. I don't really have at the end of this first view, I don't really have a fully formed view of what this thing is trying to say. I do have, again, pointed out a number of things. Like, I agree with this general point about it being about exposing lies, deception, cabal, and embracing the truth, right? I think that's actually kind of the point, is like, but outside of that, I don't really have anything to add other than what I've already said in the video. From like, it is definitely interesting as an artistic piece, right? But it's not the kind of thing that I usually spend my time on personally. But yeah. So let's see. Well, I guess Happy, I hope that you enjoyed this particular rant of mine. Because I would definitely have to watch this a couple more times to really absorb what it is that I just watched, to be perfectly honest. But it does seem anti-Gnostic from this first view, right? The whole idea is about like dispelling the hyper reality that, bad actors have placed on you. And funny enough, it does use a lot of the signs and symbols from people who were almost certainly themselves casting hyper realities in order to deceive people themselves, right? So it's kind of interesting that they, especially like the reptilian overlords thing, it's like, yeah, Yeah, nah, that was definitely a hyper reality. You'd have to be a special kind of fool to not really understand that. Like, that's a distraction in and of itself, right? But yeah. So, long story short, I think at this point I'm padding out the video. I'm gonna end this video and go get myself some tacos. Hopefully, I didn't make a fool of myself for this.